Hey everyone, this is the Innovator's Mindset with Leigh Ragsdale. There we go. Leigh. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I'm really pumped. I've been
Okay, let's
I've
do
been
this.
watching your stuff on Facebook, and if you don't connect with Leigh, you are the Unorthodox Principal on Facebook. I just love your stuff. I find it very fascinating, and some of the stuff that you post, and I like. There's so much that I agree with. There's so much that I used to do as a principal. Like I feel like I almost want to say back in the 1900s, even though it's that, but I feel like that old. And I know that you're doing a lot of consulting work. I before I get into asking you questions, uh, there was something you posted, and I don't want to really get into it, but you posted, and there's something like someone wrote something stupid to you, whatever. Anyways, I don't
All
want to
right.
like give that any oxygen. The reason I bring it up is because I saw your community that you worked with just love you, and we're like, oh, we love you and you're the best, and like you made such an impact. And I was like, I just love this lady. So that was what really stuck out to me, and I wanted to connect with you.
Well, and I'm the same way. Like, I don't like energy vampires,
Nope.
people sucking the energy out of the room. But the main reason I posted it because I'm tough, right? I've been picked on and made fun of my whole life for being me. My mom was an original dance mom. She did not care. I broke my arm before recital and I had blinged out silk, whatever, fake slings on. I mean, it's been my entire life. But the reason I commented is and made a post is because she's an educator, and that's not okay to be mean and rude online. And also for all the people that get those comments and then stop posting, like they start becoming silent, and that's not okay. Like people need to hear our voices.
Right. And I get all that. I just wanted to point out the love. You got so much love, and that's I just like it shows, when your community comes, even though you're not a principal right now. I know that you do a lot of work in keynoting, consulting, but you can see that this is years ago that these people are still remembering how big of an impact that you had. So I just love that, and I just wanted to highlight it right at the bat because immediately I'm like, I want to connect with her. Like, and I know I saw that just how many people appreciate you, and it made me feel good that people outright tell you how much, because a lot of times in education, this people don't get their flowers until, like, honestly, it's like, oh, that person died, let's go to the funeral. Like, you should have said nice before. Maybe you should have like
Yeah, Dave
done
Pepper
that
just wrote a
before.
song about
Don't
that.
wait till they die, right? So anyways,
Yeah.
I know it's a little bit morbid to get into, but before we get into anything, and we're a short time, and I could just, like, as soon as I start talking to you, my energy is up. Like, I just really appreciate you. So I know you're the opposite of a energy vampire. So Leigh, if you can just tell everyone who you are, what you do today, I think it's a really great place to start.
Sure. I'm Leigh Ragsdale. I go by the Unorthodox Principal. If you were any of my students or teachers or even families, community, they all call me Miss Lee. I taught alternative high school south of St. Louis years ago and completely changed my
Hmm.
entire life. Those kids taught me more about life than I will ever,
Hmm.
ever, ever, ever know. And then I got into administration, moved to Cape Girardeau, and I was totally a high school person. Like I could not stand elementary kids. My mom was an elementary
Right.
teacher, PE for 30 years. I did like one observation with her one time when that was my major years ago. And she was like, yeah, I'm going to sign off on these 30 hours. Don't come back. And I was like, yeah, I don't like snot and boogers and people touching me and my clothes are all dry clean. So no. And so my superintendent calls me, goes, I've got the perfect place. You've got to go to Franklin Elementary next year. And I was an assistant high school principal.
Hmm.
And I just hung up on him. And I said, and I called my old superintendent where we taught together. And I said, you will not believe they want me to go to the elementary. I hate kids. And he started saying all the names of my alternative kids that he had had when they were in junior high before they got, they had that path. And he said, could you imagine having X, Y, and Z as a second grader, as a kindergartner? And I just started crying and I was like, "Oh my gosh." And then I was made for it. I mean, I could wear boas and sequins and my teachers were like, "Oh yeah, that's not weird." I mean, my kids. And so I was in three different turnaround elementary schools. And then we moved. My husband got relocated for work, so we moved, and then we moved back to my hometown. And became the principal of that pre-K through 2 building. And I was a terrible student, so I wasn't gone long enough. 20 years was not long enough. People were still like, I remember what you did when you were in 7th grade cheerleading and made those brownies for the 8th graders. And I remember when you didn't have a 5th hour class. And I'm like, my mom was finally like, I mean, my mom, we call her Mare Dog, was finally like at the grocery store, like, if you don't stop saying, I can't believe Lee's a principal, I'm going to take offense to this and, whatever. And so it's been wild and awesome. And I wouldn't trade it for a million bazillion years. I mean, it's the most rewarding job on the planet.
When you actually, I remember seeing that about that you worked in were principal of an alternative program, because I also was that too, and I don't know if you knew that, and it was students who were lots of behavioral stuff that was, and they were actually at this school. And when I first became principal, it was interesting because I had an elementary school, but I also had an alternative program that was off-site, and I went there right away. And the first thing I did was they had a basketball court at the school, and I just played basketball with all the kids, and they thought it was the coolest thing ever as a principal, because I love basketball. And I know this is probably not the best thing. I started talking trash when we're playing, right? Because that's what I would do. And and I remember the teacher saying to me, it was so good to see, because the kids were just kids with you, and you didn't like come in here with a perception. You just treated them in the same way you would treat anybody, including us too, because I would do that with staff if I played basketball. I don't trust everybody. But that really, just everyone needs to feel that. And I think, a lot of times kids get a label, and it's like, no, they're kids, right? And so see them as a kid. Sometimes they come from really horrible situations, and someone who just cares about them, really makes all the difference in the world. And I think that really connects with me. So like when you're saying about some of the experience that you had with the alternative program, how did that help you shape you as an elementary principal?
Well, it was almost like I didn't realize it, but with my high school alternative kids, they were almost like kindergarten. It was like this love of learning
Right.
came back to them because we did all these outside of the box
Mm.
activities and things, because I was never a typical student. I just was very good at playing school. And so I was really trying to teach how I was taught, and that was not working. And I
Yeah.
finally was like, we're alternative, right? And I'm truly alternative. My dad was like, if they had that school, that's exactly where we would have, put me, back in the day. But what I realized very quickly in the elementary, it was no different. I mean, I changed like some of my language, like I couldn't say certain like drug slang and stuff when I would say it real like dorky, so I quit saying it. I couldn't
Right.
say like things
Right.
like that. But I did the same thing, and I really that's where my whole mindset changed. Like, and back in the day, this, we're always taught build relationships, right? That's your
Yeah.
first step.
Yeah.
But that's really easy for some people. That's really easy for me. With all kinds of kids, besides really, really whiny girls that get broken up with like that, I've no tolerance for that. But I would find people for them to connect with. And like I'd always take these boys that had like chewing tobacco and usually probably had a pocket knife on them and all these bad things. They could be with me all day and they didn't faze me a bit. But the key was connection, right? And connecting a kid with an adult that they had something in common with. I'm not everyone's cup of tea. I say that all the time. And that's okay. I wouldn't want to work with a table of me. I'd go crazy, but we had to connect kids. And that's when I really started the journey of like trauma informed practices and what that really is, way before it became a buzzword. I
Right.
mean, and how, holy cow, this happened to them. This is why they react for in this reason. And so I'm dealing with all these little kids, but in my mind, I've got all these high school kids that I'm like, holy cow, this is what happened. Because, I could ask them to write anything and they hated to write. So I said, well, write about the first time you started hating school.
Mhm.
And all my alternative kids would talk about elementary, and it was some big life event, right? It was a death in the family, it was a move, it was a divorce, it was whatever, a teacher that they didn't like, so they were out in the hall. It was probably undiagnosed, something with their learning, whatever. But they would write pages and pages about this.
Mhm.
And I thought, these kids have gone this long
Right.
with all of this baggage. How can I get to them at 5 and also build them up. And that's when we started doing morning gym. And morning gym changed everything in elementary. We did 10 minutes sacred time every day as a school. And I ran it every day. People would say you can't do that. I did it with 800 kids pre-K through 2 at my last school every day. The only thing I'm never late for, and you know that because I was late today. I was late for my own wedding. I pushed it back an hour. But I am not late for freaking morning gym ever. So, and it was all empowerment. Like it's all chance. It was all of our expectations. Like every school I went into, the behavior
Mhm.
was was crazy, right? Like we had these kids that were doing half days, 1 hour a day with a one-on-one TA and all this. I'm like, what? I got 18-year-olds that could have just like, pinned me up against the wall. You're letting a 5-year-old run your building? And not today, right? But they had all these matrix everywhere of all these terms, and it's all in cursive. And I'm like, you guys realize we're bottom 9 in the state. So like our kids can't read, and they definitely can't read cursive. So what's the point of all of this
Mm.
hanging everywhere? We need to believe in something that we all get behind. And that's when morning gym, if ever,
Mm.
and so my kids policed each other. They'd be like, head up, we're champions, shoulders back. And we did, I am statements. And then people would come and watch us. Schools would come and they'd be like, there's no way you do this. And then they'd be like, their eyes would be this big because my kids were like, because I'd be like, I am awesome every day. It didn't matter. I had COVID. I did that in a mask. I mean, every day we did it. And then we had 2 minutes of mindfulness and we left it in a silent gym where kids
Yeah.
were regulated and they started the day. And people would say, we don't have time for that. And I said, okay, t you give me that 10 minutes
Mm.
and then my teachers can teach because they're not having to give every kid that is high needs, which was the
Right.
majority of our kids. I mean, all this attention. And so I don't know, it's just been a full circle moment. I'm getting ready to do a big tomorrow, actually, kind of like a little workshop on morning gym. Like, and I don't want, I've never really released it because it's me, right? Like
Right.
it reflected me and our schools. Like you're not going to be standing in front of 800 kids and say, I am so fabulous and do a hair flip and point at someone, which we did.
I do have good hair. I'm gonna
Yes, you
just
do.
say.
But that might get old after
do,
every
do,
day.
do you know? You would not believe the timing of this. I saw a video literally yesterday that backs up what you're saying. It was from it was regarding Naperville, Illinois. I actually link, and then I actually like, is this a true video? Because it was on Instagram and said basically physical exercise totally changed their results in what they're doing at the beginning of the day. So I'll share a link to that article because that backs up what you're doing in the show notes as well. One of the things that you talked about that really resonated with me is really the elementary experience. And when students would get in trouble and they would get sent to me, there's only two things I asked. Why are you here? And I wouldn't say, even if I knew everything, you never know everything. Do you know what I mean?
Never.
And they don't know what you know. So that's all I would say. And I would say, listen, all I need you to tell me the truth and we'll figure it out. If you lie to me, that's where we're going to have an issue. But I just need you to tell me what's going on. And then I would say, after they would tell me, and I would wait and wait, I would wait forever if I had to. What would you do if you were me? And you actually teach the kids to figure out their own consequences, that process. And I know this sounds weird because there are a lot of people who are like, we need to know the exact consequence for this action, whatever. I'm like, I don't know the kid's situation. I want to figure out with the kid. I want to work with the family. And there's kids who would get 5-day suspensions with me. They would be by my side for 5 days because I'm saying, this kid, the last thing they need when they make this mistake is an adult saying, we don't want you. Where I'd be honest with you, some kids got 5-day suspensions at home because that was like what they needed at that moment with their family and all that other stuff. So I think that I really appreciate. And why do people call you unorthodox? I don't know where you're getting that from. Like, where is that coming from? What? Anyways,
Yeah.
I only got one more. I only got one more question for you. I'm going to ask you, what has been the impact of, and you can check out the link down below and please join it because there's some really fascinating insights. Tell me what the impact of your Facebook community and like sharing some of your insights, but also learning from them. I'm really fascinated by it. I think it's like really cool how you're leveraging that.
Well, I always, I can't even believe I'm going to say this because this sounds very cliche. And I also want to say that we didn't like practice any of this or know the questions before we got
No,
on here
no,
either.
I'm an
Um,
Orthodox podcaster.
yeah,
There you
I
go.
know. That's why I was like, yeah, let's do
Let's
it.
go. Yeah.
Um, but I've really always prided myself on being a learner, right? Like, so
Yeah.
my grandpa George was a principal for 30 years.
Just wait. Just wait. Hold on.
And
Grandpa George.
yep,
George's.
the
George's.
Georges, the Georges unite. So my grandpa George was a principal for 30 years. And what he always told me, and all the grandkids, his kids, right, is like nothing, what people can't take away from you is your knowledge, right? Like what is up in here and what you learn. And it's so important to continue to learn. And that's how our community has been. Like, and what I love is like going back to that silly negative post. So many comments though were so positive on like we can agree to disagree. Like when did that become like not okay? That's
Mhm.
how greatness happens when you're around a table and you're like, this is a great idea. And then someone's like, yeah, but what about
Mhm.
this? And then this, and you've got that like synergy. I always say like tinkering and ideology. Like I never know what the final product's going to be because it's got to change 1,000 times. And what that does is like we learn and grow together. What someone's doing across town or across the state or the country or the world, a little nugget, little things that people are taking and doing that are just changing everything. Like 10 years ago, I changed from parent teacher conference to family conferences only because I used to do kindergarten walkabouts and I would visit homes. And this little blonde hair, blue eyed, curly girl comes to the door, darling, and her 80 something great grandma answers the phone. I'm like, I'm not going to be the one that says parent teacher conference when she already is going to know that grandma looks different than everyone. And we had almost 98% attendance to that. And I think it's because people felt welcomed and people
Right.
felt seen. And I think that's important too. And so now principals are reaching out like, hey, I've changed, we've changed it to family conferences. We've done all this. And it's like, that's one word, right? We changed from like tardy passes to welcome passes. How different is that? Like, we're so happy you're here. Our school is not complete without you compared to what's the reason you're late.
Right.
Like, nobody likes that. That's bad, bad energy.
Right. Leigh, I could talk to you forever, but I got to jump on to another meeting.
I know.
Connect with Leigh on Facebook. I do like those insights. I didn't want to be this guy, but you should. If you haven't read my book, you're gonna love it, the new one, because like it
I
is
know.
a
I've
lot
got
of
to
what
get I've seen it all
it's
over
like actually a
Instagram.
lot what you're talking about, and it is like we need to like learn from each other and not just kind of like be set in our ways. And I really appreciate how you share your learning, but are open to. And I love that you're like, hey, not everyone's gonna be. I'm not gonna be everyone's cup of tea. That's why you surround yourself with people who are different, because then somebody will be somebody's cup of tea, and that's the teams you make. So Leigh, I'm like so upset that we didn't have more time, but I know we're gonna connect more. Make sure you connect with Leigh on her Facebook community. It's really awesome. You're gonna learn a lot. Be nice to her though, because if
And
you're
you don't
not,
have to be nice to me because
yeah,
I'm
no,
tough.
you do, you do,
So,
yeah, you do.
yeah.
I will never be mean to you. I trust me. Yeah, okay. So, anyways, thanks for being here, Leigh. Thanks so much for your time. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thanks,
Take care.
George.